Alright, this is the second immigration video. This is reality after the dream. They came here wanting all this better life, and what they found out was something much, much different. So we're going to see how that kind of contrasted with where they went. Now, first off, our country is unique because we don't have a true American culture. There is no speak American. It doesn't exist. You can see there by the little slide, we're a melting pot. We're made of Chinese and Irish and Italians and Mexicans and Russians and a whole slew of other things, and it blends together, and it makes this nice American culture. Now, where do you see the melting pot theory? You see it in restaurants. You can go in South Haven, you can get Italian, or you can get Thai, or you can get Indian. You don't have American food. Not everywhere just sells a hot dog. Well, I guess they do if you have a picky child, that that's all they eat. But there you go. So melting pot, we have that. Now, the kind of the difference of that is we have something called cultural plurality. That is one word you cannot say and sound intelligent, so I'm not going to say it again. And enclaves. And you can see there a little Haiti or a little Tokyo or Hell's Kitchen. These are where people moved to be around the same people that they came from the country before. So they did not assimilate or fit into American culture, become this melting pot. They kind of kept their own little traditions. Now, when they started doing this, people felt threatened, and they kind of went into this nasty little way of doing things. And that is nativism. Now, nativism is an extreme hatred towards immigrants. And this is kind of naivety, I guess, if you will, because the only true natives at this point were the Native Americans on the reservations, not the people who were here. Now, there are three main reasons why people were discriminated upon based on immigrants, based on nativism. Number one, this fear of understanding. They didn't understand their plight. They didn't understand where they came from, etc. Number two is religious. There's always been a fear early on in this country of the Catholic Church coming over and kind of running things, going through the Pope, and that fear was exploited a lot. And number three, you don't mess with people's money. It's economics. And so they were, as South Park put it, kind of eloquently, I guess, or not so eloquently if you watch South Park, they took our jobs. So we have all these things going on with nativism. Now, the first people who are actually nativized, I don't even think that's a word, I'm saying it is, so there you go. We're not Hispanics, we're not anybody like that. It was, as you can see there, Chinese. Now, why were people against Chinese coming to this country? Chinese laborers built the railroads, and they were seen as disposable. They did not have to speak English, just lay the track, move, and potentially just get hurt. But when it came through, and you have the little political cartoon there in the front, you can see the African American background, and you can see the Native American telling the Chinese, hey, basically, when they're through with you, they're going to find a way to get rid of you and make sure you can't come. And that's what happened. It was called the Chinese Exclusion Act. I think I've got it here later on. So nativism is against the new immigrants. Keep the ends together. It doesn't go backwards. So nativism is against the new immigrants. They didn't like them because of fear, religion, and then also economics. All right. Now, one of the biggest nativist groups to emerge kind of had its root already. It was the KKK. KKK was in the South, but at this time, the KKK is also going to spread to the North. Why? And you can see there the Klansmen cutting down the tree of Rome, and so Catholicism is going to bring the nativists and the KKK up into the North, and their big push in the North was, hey, we don't want these Catholics here. They're going to bring the Pope over. They're going to try to overthrow the president, etc. And so the KKK has a pretty good foothold for a little while. It starts to dissipate and go away, and we'll cover that in a minute, what happens with that. Now, speaking of Chinese Exclusion Act, I mentioned it before. Now, it was not all Chinese who were not allowed to come to this country, just basic unskilled laborers. Why? Job competition. Now, this is an interesting political cartoon where Uncle Sam is telling the Russians they shouldn't exclude the Armenians. And if you have ever heard the expression, you have a skeleton in your closet, a dirty little secret, you have that Chinese skeleton coming at Uncle Sam saying, hey, remember me? You did that. So we've got to be really careful where we're going with that. Um, the Chinese Exclusion Act we're going to cover in class. Definitely look at how the document is important and where we're going to proceed with it. Now, with all the immigrants coming here, there was a land rush in Oklahoma. Why Oklahoma? This was the former reservation land, and they're going to put these farms to work. And if you've ever been to Oklahoma, there's a ton of Germans and different things like that farming this, of German descendancy, I guess, farming this land, and this is why. So there's a lot of unique things going on with that, and just like a gold rush, they ran to and they took what they were able to be given. Now, a major thing occurs in San Francisco around 1900, and I'm skipping a little bit here. San Francisco suffered a massive earthquake. And how does this tie to nativism, etc.? A lot of the people who died were in one district because there were bad houses, and they happened to be Japanese. Now, this is a big problem because we put them in this one area of San Francisco due to nativism and not wanting them around. Now, the other little cartoon there in the front is from the Russo-Japanese War. You can see that the Russian, although they are bigger and the big military, got knocked out by the little men of Japan. And this is a major fear that the Japanese will try to attack America. So we have to go in and work out a little deal. Now, Teddy Roosevelt, who's president when this happens, already had a good thing because he settled the Russo-Japanese War, and he will go and make what is called a gentleman's agreement. Now, a gentleman's agreement in a vague term is kind of like a makeshift treaty. We're not really going to call it a treaty, but there it is. Now, as you can see there, the Japanese were able to enter the U.S. and go wherever they were wanted. Japan recognized the right to exclude immigrants so that they wouldn't just come here in big things. And the U.S. government got the School Board of San Francisco to segregate or to get rid of segregation of Asians in their separate schools. And so this was a big deal because it kind of kept the Japanese off our back, but it may be the beginning of Japanese not trusting us. Fast forward to Pearl Harbor. Now, the last thing we have here is Americanization. And this is where that whole concept of you're an American boy, speak American, maybe came from. Now in class we're going to look at an interesting video. It was a Coca-Cola ad, ran from the Super Bowl, and it played America the Beautiful in multiple languages. And some people were really upset about it. Other people thought it was great. We're going to play it in class and kind of to see which way you feel about that. But that was the two videos about immigration. Make sure you go and take that quiz. And the next video that goes with this chapter will be urbanization.